little walkthrough of this game that I'm working on and kind of how it all fits together. So let me just run it here real quick. So the basic thing that's going on is I'm the character over here on the left that's moving around in the bottom corner now. So when the game kicks off, there's a little baby that'll go running across the screen and poop along the way randomly. And then these other characters, if I run into them, are basically the enemies. So if I hit one of these, you'll see I'll lose my health there and die. Let me pause this though. But yeah, you can see like the basic setup of the board here is just, there's a series of squares or tiles or whatever. I think it's like about 11 across and 5 down or something like that. And yeah, everything pretty much works off of where those tiles are located. So for example, if I move right, it's just gonna change my position in the next tile and animate me over there. And same thing with all the other characters. And then, if there's something on that tile, like health or whatever, I'll pick that up. And if it's a kind of tile I shouldn't be able to move to, like the water, it'll just not allow me to move there. And then there's some special items like on the right where the baby is, that's considered the exit. So when you hit that, it'll just basically send you to the next level. And yeah, so it's all pretty basic. If I pick up items, say like this diaper here, I'll get money from that. If I pick up the poop, I'm gonna lose health. And then if I pick up these little health packs, obviously I'm gonna gain health. So I'm just gonna run it here, kind of talk through a little bit of that, even though it's pretty straightforward. So, and I'm blocked from moving while this is going on. Okay, so now I can move. So picked up some health. My health meter on the right went up. If I try to go down into the water, I can't do it. Hit the poop, lose health. Picked up a diaper, went from $10 to $20. So try and get all the stuff without getting hit. And then boom, moved on to the next level. There goes the baby, pooping along the way. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty much as simple as a 2D game I could think of. And my goal with this is just to try to like make a really, really simple 2D game, almost something like to kind of go back to like as simple as like the original Legend of Zelda kind of setup, but try to make it interesting by adding a lot of personality to it and just kind of like use more of an everyday settings than something that's like fantasy or sci-fi or whatever. But anyway, that's just super high level where I'm kind of trying to go with it. Oh, you notice too at the bottom there's like a description of the area. So now I'm on Forest Day 2. If I go to the next level, it's going to show up as Forest Day 3, and you can see the layout's a little bit different. And then I think it'll just keep rotating. Yeah, here we go. Now we're basically back to the beginning one. So technically the game has a beginning and I guess no end. You just kind of keep going or you die, and that's it. And my resets, I have 2 different resets. I can't remember which one actually resets the whole thing. I'm trying to see. Anyway, but it may be broken at the moment. But yeah, so I was just starting to get back into working on this. I'd put a bunch of time into it like 6 months ago and then kind of walked away from it for a little bit. But I thought it might be cool, like, if you haven't used Unity or if you haven't worked on games before. If you have worked on Unity, I took a slightly different approach than what people normally do. May not have been the best thing to do, but that's what I tried. So I'm going to just pause that. And so basically the typical thing you do in Unity is you make things called game objects, and you can do like out of the box initially they have this transform, which just is basically like the position. I'm just using it for the position. You can use it for rotating and scaling and stuff like that. And you can add more components. So like if you have like a sprite to go along with it, you might add a component for a sprite and then drag the image in there. And that becomes part of the sprite. And then if you want to attach behavior, you add these scripts to the objects. So I have a script that generates the board automatically that's attached to this thing. So it like fills in all the different squares with whatever the floor is, whatever the item on top of it is, and then I can't remember if it handles putting the characters in or not. It may not do that. So yeah, and you can see here like I've set some properties on this thing. So like it uses a board square game object. See if we can find that. Yeah, so it uses, where is it? Board square. Yeah, so this thing has like no default floor, so I think it defaults to grass if nothing's there, and then the default item is health if nothing's set, but I think all that gets managed by the board generator. But anyway, like, so typically if you're working on a Unity project, everything that you're going to use is going to show up over here as some kind of game object, and you'll have like even a camera, for example, an event system for if you want to like display text in the UI, it has to have this thing called event system. I even have something for like the game, which just is a script for the game. Here's probably like a more relatable game object. So this thing has this is the parent, which is my character, right? So here's just a transform for positioning. Here's the like layer that the sprite's going to appear on, and here's some attributes for like the script for the player. This is supposed to be like the position where it starts out, but all that actually gets read in from a file for like the level data, so it doesn't actually end up getting used. I could probably just take that out of there. And similarly, like the baby has a default. It also has a player script with some default settings for where it's supposed to be and like what layer it gets rendered on. Like I made different layers for like the floor, the items, and the players, and then the UI. Floor being the lowest, and then UI being the highest. But yeah, same thing here for these NPCs. And if you were gonna like randomly generate NPCs, you might have like an NPC generator that just like throws them out randomly on the map. But I use my level data for that. So I just happen to have 2 at a time at the moment. But so it's not super flexible. But yeah, it's just kind of the simplest thing I could do. And one of the things I was trying to do was not rely on just building up a ton of pre-made game objects that you just like throw in when you need them. I was trying to do it a little more programmatically, and where I could, I was trying to like actually completely not rely on Unity. So any place I can make like a class that didn't need to be inheriting from like the main Unity classes, I was trying to split those off and keep them separate. So basically, like, if it's just a lesson I learned from working in frameworks is the more stuff you can keep independent of the framework. If you ever have to switch frameworks, or you ever want to like bring things over from one project to another, it just makes it easier. And it also makes you think a little more about like where you actually really need to use the framework and where you don't. So anyway, that was just one of the things I was shooting for. I may have like gone too far in that direction. I'm not really sure yet. It seems to be working okay, but every once in a while there's something that I want to do that I can't do because I'm not inheriting from the main like Unity classes. But anyway, may not be super interesting to you unless you're programming in Unity. But just conceptually, some of the things that I did are I tried to any place where there was like a difference in how something should happen, I tried to use different class that conform to the same API basically. So be an interface, I guess, in C#. So basically, like the way the baby interacts with the items is different from the way the main character interacts from the items, and it's different from how the enemies interact with the items. So, like, as the baby's running across, I don't actually want it to be picking up anything as it goes. So it's got its own style of interactor where it basically just like ignores every object as it's going through, except for the exit. I can't remember, actually. It may not even care about that. And it also has a thing called an item dropper. And as it moves across, it basically just like randomly, some number of times, will just drop these poop items as it goes. But I can have an item dropper potentially for any of the characters. Like maybe maybe I want the enemies to drop some kind of obstacle, or like leave a slime trail or whatever, or maybe leave money. Who knows? But yeah. So I mean, any place where there's like a template of something that I want to do, but I want each thing to do it differently, I just try to make basically separate classes for each of those that conform to the same API, so I can just, I don't have to treat things differently. Like the main player, the baby, and the NPCs, as they're moving through the map, I can just tell them, hey, do your item dropper thing, or do your item interactor thing, or do your floor interactor thing. I don't have to like special case any of it. And then basically I can like consolidate all the logic about what something should be doing in that like specific thing that's made for it, instead of having to say, hey, if you're here and if you're the baby, do this, and if you're the player, do this, and if you're an NPC, do this. So kind of like get rid of all that branching logic, and just make it a little bit easier to figure out how to do things. So like, for example, here's like the item interactor. So this is just the generic interface, and it basically has one method that says, hey, interact using some player in the game and some object from the game, and it's going to return a true or false. And I think that's used to say whether it should destroy the object. I can't remember. It's been a little bit since I've been in here, but like if we look at this baby interactor for item interactor, for example, can see that it's so I just want to make sure this thing's recording. Yeah, it is. Cool. So yeah, here's like an item interactor for the baby, conforms to this item interactor interface, which just means it has this method basically. And you can see here, it's gonna default to like consuming and trying to replace whatever the item is. So that means like it would do the drop that I was talking about, like the baby leaves the poop as it goes every once in a while. And at the moment, I'm just using the name of the item, and then just doing a really simple like if else, branching in here for each of those things. So like for the baby, if it's the stairs, it does not consume and replace, because I don't want it picking up the exit when it hits it. If hits a diaper, it also does not consume and replace. I don't want it like picking up the things that are in the player money. And then if it hits health, it does actually use it. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, so it changes the health of the baby by 1. It's probably a bug. But it doesn't actually use the item. I should probably not do that. It doesn't really make any sense. Anyway, I'll come back and touch that later. And then for anything else, it'll default to consuming and replacing it, but there actually isn't anything else at the moment, so it doesn't really matter. And this down here is just a little helper to get the name of the item. You can see it's getting called from up here, and it's actually looking into the name of the game object, which is not great. I'd like to do something a little smarter than that, but that's working right now, so don't overcomplicate it. But yeah, like here, if we switched over and we looked at the one for the parent, which is like the main character, you'll see it's a little bit different. So we still have this interact method, and just like the other class, it's going to take a player and an item, so it's conforming to the same interface that's defined here in the item interactor. And it'll just return true or false for whether or not it should consume and replace the item that's hit. So again, yeah, just like defaulting to true for consume and replace. And then I'm just doing a string comparison on like every item I'm expecting to run into. So, if the player hits the stairs, it's going to move on to the next level. If it hits health, it's going to add one to the player's health. Hits damage, it's going to take one away. Hits the poop, it's going to take one away. And then, if you hit a diaper, it's going to add $10, 10 money units. And what is this saying? Oh, yeah. So basically, like, if after, potentially your health's changed, here I'm doing a special check to see if the player is dead. And if it is, handle its death-related stuff. It's debatable whether it is best to handle that here. I may want to move that into like change available health and do it there, because if you ever go below 0 or whatever. But again, just for the time being, this is pretty simple and it's working. So that's what I'm doing. And then at the end here, it just returns consume and replace, which I'm not overriding for any of these cases, so it'll just always be true. Which is kind of funny. Like stairs, for example, probably shouldn't be consumed, but when you hit the exit, it switches so fast to the next level you wouldn't know anyway, but it'd still probably be a good thing to not do that. So anyway, you can see there's a lot of like room for improvement here, and just little things kind of noticing each time as I go back in. And yeah, you can see here I'm using like Unity and the I don't know if I think I need the Unity engine here because I'm using the Unity game object. So that's why I'm using that. But basically anywhere where I can get away with not doing it, I'm trying not to include Unity engine on these classes. I don't know if I have any great examples of this or not. And let's see. So like items, for example, is just another one of these classes that's inheriting from Unity stuff, mono behavior. And it exposes all these different kinds of objects. So like binky, diaper, bottle, poo. And then for the adult stuff, there's health, damage, and poison. And then the shared stuff is like stairs and none. And then it's going to... What is it doing? Oh, yeah. There's a set of these things that can be consumed, and it's just defining something called consumables. And I think the reason I did that was because I wanted to be able to like drop random items or place random items. Yeah. So I was trying to set up these methods for like random creation of consumable things for the player. And that was partly because I was thinking I was going to do some like random map generation. So I could just randomly for each tile like pick something. But I think I got away from using any of that stuff. But yeah, if we like hop over here, you can kind of see the related game object. So this has the item script we were just looking at, and you can see it's got game objects for each of those things that was defined, and I just pulled them up down here. I have like a folder for the items here. So like here you can see there's the binky and the bottle and damage and all these things over here on the side. I'm not using all these at the moment. I'm using, I guess, quite a few of them. And then, like maybe we can open one of these. Yeah, this doesn't really have much. So it's just got basically a position and a sprite. Yep, there's a sprite here for it. It's just this bottle image. So yeah, I mean, that's like basically if I want to make another, if I ever wanted to like swap out, for example, the art or something on one of these, it'd be really easy to do. Or if I wanted to like define more of these, I could set up more of these properties that could be set by just like dragging in a game object that's nothing more than the sprite image and the position. And then I'm trying to think of if I have anything else set up that way. I think I have floors set up in a similar way, but there isn't an actual like game object for editing it. It's just all code. But yeah, probably the most complicated part is the board, like the reading of the level data and then the creation of the level. Maybe I have an example of the code for that. There's like a few pieces for it, so might take me a minute to totally nail it down. So this is a class that is both reading and defining level data. Yeah. So I think everything from here up, this is another class I just need to kind of like separate a little bit better, but for simplicity I was just doing it this way. So yeah, like here's the level data. It's got a bunch of methods for like choosing the level, figuring out like what the player's starting row and starting column is, setting up the path for the baby to walk that it does automatically at the beginning of the levels, and also like paths for the NPCs. I used to have fixed paths for them, but it actually made the game really, really boring because they would just loop over really predictable paths really slowly, so there wasn't much challenge. So I recently switched their paths to actually just be completely random. And just that little tweak actually like added a little bit of challenge to the game and made it a little more fun, even though it's still pretty dumb. And then there's just like some helpers in here. So basically, the way the board's going to get rendered is it's just going to like walk through every row, and then like each column in that row, and it's going to figure out what the floor should be and then what the items should be. So it's got some little helpers here for like what's the floor at this point and what's the item at this point. Then also like where the player position should be. And then all the data for that's basically down here. So I have like 4, let's see, how's this set up? Player positions. Yeah, so these are like the 4 positions. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I think there's like 4 levels, and those are the 4 starting points. I don't know. I don't know. It's probably not right. And then I have all like the NPC path information here, I think is what that is. Yeah. Which is not getting used because I just switched to doing random stuff. And then here's the path for like the baby. So this is like how much it would move in the X direction and the Y direction, I think. So these are just like one, you can see they're just like one move at a time each. Same thing here, just different levels. And then these are like, you could, these are the maps for the ground. So like the zeros get translated to the grass, and the ones get translated to water, and 2s get translated to the bridge character. So you can see this, let's see if we can see here. This one kind of matches up with this map. So stuff over here is grass, stuff over here is grass, water, water, bridge. If we were to go to like the next level, maybe we can do that. Uh-oh. Actually, I'm not preventing you from getting hit before you can move, so I think I got hit a few times on that one. Uh-oh. Now we have somebody stuck on the bridge. Let's see if we can get them across. Nope. Oh, he's still stuck there. Uh-oh. Well, I was hoping to be able to show this off, but let's see. Maybe it'll get unstuck. No, I'm stuck there. Here we go. Okay, so if we go to this one, I'm going to pause it. We should be able to see that the next map pretty much lines up with that too. Yep, so here's the zeros are the grass over here. The ones are the water. No bridge on this one. So pretty simple stuff. And then these are the item maps for those same levels. So like here's the second level. and these 2s up here are the health, and the 1 down here is the exit. So the exit's just an item that you run into. But yeah, I mean, that's more or less it. There's some other like things that I approached in a similar way, like there's meters up here. Each one of those monitors a player attribute, which is this class here, and basically you can like increase it or decrease it. You can check to see if it's empty. You can prevent it from like going negative, stuff like that. But just like things will be common to any player attribute that's added. And then I have like meters, like a meter that's got icons, so that's like the heart meter up here, and then another player attribute meter that's just text. So yeah, just trying to keep this stuff like super generic and reusable. And you can see here too, kind of like I had the item interactors. There's a bunch of player interactors here. So there's like a default, which is what does that one do? I guess that's like the player, the main player interactor. This is ghost, so it doesn't interact with other players. NPC, yeah, so like NPC, for example, if it doesn't hit anything, which is all that's saying, just like return true, which I think means did it hit no collision. And then otherwise it's changing its own health by -1, and then the thing that it ran into is health by -1, which is probably silly. I probably should not have it hurt itself when it runs into other people. So anyway, you can see lots of room for improvement, tweaking things here. But yeah, the way I was trying to approach it in general was just like keep all this stuff pretty flexible. Where I can, don't tie into the Unity framework. Like you can see, this class doesn't have those declarations for the Unity stuff up at the top, and it's not using like game object, which is kind of one of the main Unity things. Yeah, and hopefully that would allow me to reuse this stuff in other projects if I had to, for whatever reason, or for like testing. If you can test things in isolation without having to pull in like all the framework junk if you don't need it, that's kind of nice. But yeah, so there's more in here, like input management and the player managers and a few other odds and ends. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of more or less it. So anyway, if you have any questions about it, like please leave questions in the comments, or if you'd like to see more. This is just kind of like partly a refresher for me to go back through this project and get an idea of how it's all set up. And who knows, this is my very first kind of real Unity project, so I'm probably doing all kinds of stuff wrong here. But thought it'd be fun to just kind of take a minute to share it. And if you haven't used Unity, maybe you can learn something from this. And if you're a pro with it, maybe you can point out what I'm doing wrong, or where it might be easier to handle things a certain way. But yeah, so I'm actually hoping to get back into the groove of working on this game. And it's my first game, so or first kind of full game I'm trying to do. So who knows how it's going to end up, but thought it'd be a fun way to practice game programming and try to actually like ship something, even if it's not not ideal, because it'll be my first game, but just try to get something out there and like finish doing a game, even whatever the final state it ends up in, but just trying to get something shipped basically. So yeah, if like I said, if you have questions or comments, please leave them down below in the comments, and I'll try to answer any questions anybody has about my setup. I'll probably also be doing more videos on this, so I'm going to get back into this a bit and kind of clean things up, and then I'll probably try to actually either do some recordings as I'm working on things, so you can kind of see how that goes in real time, or I may pick like a small change that I'm doing and like complete it, and then kind of go back and like talk through it, just so it might be easier to get 5 or 10 minute chunks that are usable to people. But yeah, let me know what you think about the idea of making these smaller, more digestible things, or maybe even potentially doing something like Twitch or streaming as I'm going through it, to really just kind of like record it as I go, so you can kind of see how it works. But yeah, and I guess I think I pulled all these sprites from like, I can't even remember. It was like either Mother or Pokemon stuff, but it's all placeholder art. None of it's original. I think some of the items and stuff I made, but the characters I definitely didn't do. But anyway, so yeah, thanks for watching, and like I said, please leave any questions or comments you have, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks.